Hello, this is the Mushroom Wizard, and I'm back again with another presentation regarding the mushrooms of Saskatchewan and the ways in which we go about picking these mushrooms. So today we're going to be looking at a group of mushrooms called the Knights of Saskatchewan. At this point, we have gotten more into advanced species. The knights tend to be very nondescript and they have a lot of toxic lookalikes. So let's get going here. This is everything that we're talking about will be in the Tricholoma genus. So what is a night mushroom? Night mushrooms are agaric mushrooms that belong to the genus Tricholoma. These are notoriously difficult to ID. Sometimes even to genus. They have a white spore print, so if you get to genus, you won't be able to use a spore print to determine the species. They'll all look the same. The genus have been recently split into many smaller genera. So the night mushrooms are still in Tricholoma, but that used to also include oyster mushrooms as well as honey mushrooms. No longer. So let's just get into this. So, the first one we're going to look at is the false pine mushroom, Tricholoma caligatum. We'll be looking at the pine mushroom itself in a different presentation, but that is probably the best known of the knights or the Tricholoma mushrooms. So the false pine mushroom is still an edible mushroom. This is not a toxic mushroom you'll pick thinking you picked a pine mushroom. So the false pine mushroom is off-white in color, developing tan or brown scales and fibrils with age. When I say fibrils, I mean it's like a scale that's very thin and it kind of almost feels like hair or like a carpet. It is convex, flattening with age. The profile, if you're looking straight down upon it, and this is going to be something we see throughout these nights, the profile is round or eccentric. When I say eccentric, some of them look pretty bizarre in terms of their overall shape. The margin is enrolled and appendiculate when young. So when I say appendiculate, if you recall, that means there will be fragments left over from a partial veil that are hanging off the margin of the mushroom. And as it begins to lift its margin upwards, it becomes wavy. And this grows up to about 5 inches in diameter. Here's a size reference for you. Some things to note. These are very dense mushrooms. Most of the pine or the knights are going to be very dense. If you were to grab that stipe and snap it, it'd be like you were snapping a carrot. And they tend to be really dirty, I think just because of how wide their caps are when they come up out of the ground. So these are off-white in color. Yellowing with age. I'm talking about the gills now. They are sinuate to adnext. So here, if you look closely, it is sinuate. So what that means is that as it gets to the stipe, it dips down as if it were adnext, but then it just kind of creates this channel by coming back up. So instead of just dipping down and touching the stipe, it dips down and then comes back up and touches the stipe. The gills are crowded. There are short gills between them. They are covered with a thick partial veil when young, and we're going to look at that veil right away here. And these produce white spores. So in a lot of these, what we're going to be looking at are sheathing veils. So if you look there, I'll talk about the veil a bit more, but above that, you can actually see the actual stipe. And the stipe is white. And then becoming brownish below, because it's actually the veil itself is almost like its own membrane that is covering the stipe from the base upwards. So you can see as well the stipe at the apex there is also very smooth, and then it's heavily scaled below. Like I said before, this is a very solid stipe. It'll be up to about 4 inches high and 1 inch thick. So when I say it's a sheath annulus, what I mean, like I said, it's like a membrane comes up from the base. When young, it covers those gills. But as the mushroom flattens out, it rips away and reveals the stipe beneath that membrane. But the bottom part of the membrane remains. And where it has ripped, it creates this kind of curled ring. That's the ring that we're looking at when we say a sheathed ring. Now, this species does not actually occur here. What we have instead is any number of species that look the same with some very minor differences, often with the knights I find in taste. And yeah, maybe they have a species number, maybe they don't, but we just call them Tricholoma caligatum because there's nothing readily available to replace them. These are mycorrhizal with hardwoods and preferential to oak. So where you're most likely to find this mushroom in Saskatchewan would be in any sort of urban setting where there are oak trees, or in the southeastern portion of the province along the Manitoba border where bur oak may be occurring. These grow scattered to gregarious. They're found in the fall. They're not bad to eat. They have a slightly bitter aftertaste. I've never actually eaten this mushroom, so this is just something I've read. This mushroom is often picked by mistake when people think they are picking a pine mushroom, which is significantly better in taste than I have tried. These are for advanced mushroom pickers. I'll tell you why right here. This can be pretty easily mistaken for some of the poison pies, such as the rooting poison pie that I have right there. Very similar stipe, similar colors, same look to it. And it can make you very sick. The next knight we're going to look at is the booted knight, Tricholoma focale, or focale. Don't really know how to pronounce that. So this is a golden orange to tan to olive brown cap. It is convex, flattening out with age. It's fibrillose, has some very thick scaling, but as it expands, the scaling cracks and becomes areolate. And areolate is kind of what you describe the look of mud as it dries in the sun and begins to crack. That's areolate. So that's what you're actually seeing right here. The profile, if you're looking down on it, straight down on it, once again, is often round, but sometimes very eccentric. The margin is down rolled and in rolled and appendiculate when young, and that veil breaks. And then it becomes wavy with age. At times it splits, and you can see it beginning to split in that photo down low on the right-hand side. You can see some splits occurring there, beginning to occur. These grow up to about 3 inches in diameter, so not as big as some of the others. Here's a size reference for you. If you look down low, that one on the bottom with the gills turned up is fairly eccentric in its shape as well, just to give some reference. Once again, a fairly dirty mushroom. So the gills are off-white, becoming tan with age, and they have this feature that is also common in some of these night mushrooms, where they'll develop brown spots on them. The gills themselves become dark brown with age. They are sinuate, they are crowded together, the short gills are present, they're covered with a partial veil, as we'll soon see again, and they have a white spore print. Here you can see that stipe, white above the ring, tan below the ring, very smooth above the ring, very scaly and shaggy below, kind of, again, what we've already seen. And these are cylindrical to rooting. So rooting, again, looks like a carrot where it's tapering towards the base. You have a central or eccentric attachment to the cap, solid. These grow up to about 4 inches high, 1 inch thick. There's that annulus. It's sheathed. You can see it's the same that we saw before, just different coloring. Flares at the top, kind of curls over, has that ragged look to it. These are mycorrhizal with pine, so look for these anywhere you find jack pine, or in the southwest portion of the province where you see the lodgepole pine occurring. These are terrestrial mushrooms. They are scattered to gregarious when you do find them. They are found in the very late fall. So some of these mushrooms, like this one, will be found at the end of September and into October. These are poor, or said to be poor. Once again, this is a species I have yet to find. The taste can be slightly bitter, according to what I've read. These are for advanced mushroom pickers. Here you can see, again, that's a poison pie. One of the poison pies that I chose there that looks very similar to it is the rough-stalked or the brown poison pie, Hebeloma synapizans. Moving on to the next mushroom. This is the Girdled Knight, Tricholoma cingulatum. Again, a very nondescript mushroom. Gray in color, fairly drab, developing this velvety brown scaling, convex, flattening out with age, sometimes with a little bit of a lump up top there. Circular or eccentric profile. Margin is inrolled and appendiculate when young. Again, becomes wavy and it splits apart at times. Grows up to about 3 inches in diameter. Back to the first photo, you can see how much it has split apart. Just to give it some reference for you, the one in the center there. Here's a size reference, so a bit different in that this is not as big of a mushroom as the ones we've seen. The gills are white to pale gray. They are sinuate to adnext. That one looks to be quite adnext. They are close together. Short gills are fairly frequent. This is covered with a cottony partial veil, so that's very distinctive. It's almost like somebody combined a partial veil, it looks like, with a cortina. And you can see that cottony sort of appendiculate appearance on the margin of the cap there. And this produces, like all tricholomas, a white spore print. The stipe is off-white to pale gray, cylindrical, central or eccentric attachment to the cap, has fibrillose scaling below the annulus, not present as we've seen in all of the tricholomas so far, above it, then up to about 3 inches high and a ½ inch thick. Annulus itself is flaring and woolly. These are mycorrhizal with willow trees. So anywhere you find a willow, you could potentially find this. If you look at that photo as well, and you see that white spore deposit on above the ring, you can get why this would be called a Girdled Knight. These are scattered to gregarious if you do find them. Found summer through fall, and not too common in Saskatchewan, I would add. These are supposed to be good to eat. Again, this is one I have not found for advanced mushroom pickers. Hebeloma synapizans on the right. You can see how much it looks like Tricholoma cingulatum on the left. Tricholoma pardonum on the right. That is the leopard knight. You can see that it looks like Tricholoma cingulatum on the left. The leopard knight is quite toxic. Tricholoma terium on the right. You can see that it looks almost exactly like Tricholoma cingulatum on the left. Tricholoma terium is potentially fatal. Entoloma sinuatum on the right. You can see it looks an awful lot like Tricholoma cingulatum on the left. Entoloma sinuatum has also been fatal and is quite a notoriously toxic mushroom. So, have I ever found that mushroom? I don't know. Generally speaking, when I see mushrooms that look like that, I just leave them alone. So if you want to go for it, it's on you. Just know that there's a whole lot of mushrooms that can hurt you that can be easily confused with. The next mushroom here I have found in Saskatoon. I originally thought it was Tricholoma imbricatum. It is in fact Tricholoma populinum. This is a cottonwood mushroom. So the cap is reddish brown, streaked darker towards the center. is convex, flattening out, sometimes with a shallow depression, circular, or more often eccentric in its profile. Is smooth or finely scaled. The margin is enrolled and becomes very wavy, as you can see here. These are big mushrooms. They grow up to about 6 inches across, and these are very dense mushrooms. You can break them apart. It's almost like it's like not quite what you would expect from a watermelon rind, but getting there. Here you can see a size reference for it. Very densely packed stipe and flesh. The gills are white to cream. They develop these reddish-brown spots. It says spits. No, we're not spitting. It should say spots. It is sinuate to add next. You can't really tell either way looking straight down on it like this, but those probably add next. Crowded together. You can see this one's starting to dry out, and the gills are getting that sort of wavy, dry gill appearance. Crowded, short gills present, white spore print. All of that is basically what you expect from Tricholoma mushrooms. The stipe is off-white, turning reddish-brown at the base. It is cylindrical to rooting. And that's something that we see with these Tricholoma mushrooms sometimes too. These rooting stipes where they just taper out at the base instead of expanding like many other types of mushrooms do. There's a central to eccentric attachment. This one is actually looking fairly eccentric, and it's up to about 5 inches high, 2 inches thick. These are mycorrhizal with poplars, which is why they like to grow in Saskatchewan, because there are lots of poplars here. They are terrestrial. They are preferential to sandy soil. They're scattered or gregarious when you do find them, and these are found late fall. A nice woman introduced me to these in October last year, and I was very surprised to see any mushroom other than enoki growing as in such large groups as I found these to be. Their edibility is good. They have a nutty taste and smell, I find. Again, very dense, so it doesn't have the same consistency that a mushroom would have, but it is an enjoyable mushroom to eat. These are for advanced mushroom pickers, and I'll show you why. Ba-boom! These look an awful lot like poison pie mushrooms, once again. But I would not expect to find a poison pie mushroom in October. I'll just put that one out there. The next one, this is what I actually thought those mushrooms were. This is the Mat Knight, which also supposedly occurs here, Tricholoma imbricatum. Brown cap, darkest at the center, becoming pale towards the margin. These develop fine scales with age. You can see it's starting to crack there a little bit too. These are convex, flattening out with age. Circular eccentric profile. If you look down on it, that downward margin will split as it grows older. Probably because, once again, this is going to be a very dense mushroom. This one grows up to about 5 inches in diameter. There you can see that eccentric profile. I wouldn't exactly call that round, but that may also be occurring because of the splitting as it matures. The gills are white to cream in color, becoming tan with age. These develop red spots over time. You can see some of those occurring. Sinuate to, yeah, that's pretty sinuate there. They're close together. Short gills are frequent, and there is a white spore print on this mushroom. The stipe is streaked brown. It is cylindrical to rooting, has a central to eccentric attachment. It's very solid. It is fibrous. Again, that'd be like snapping a carrot. And these grow up to about 4 inches high and 1 inch thick. So again, as you could probably do with any of the species we've looked at, you could just assume that what we're actually looking at is not the European taxon, where all these names have come from, but rather it is an identical or a group of identical species that are not yet known in North America. These ones are mycorrhizal with pine once again, so look for them around jack pine. They are terrestrial, they are scattered to gregarious, and these are found summer through fall. Good edibility, they smell sweet, they have a nutty taste. These are for advanced mushroom pickers. Here's why. Oh, they look just like a poison pie mushroom. We have several of them in Saskatchewan. Last one we're going to look at, oh hi kitty, last one we're going to look at is the Coalman Mushroom, Tricholoma portentosum. So, this mushroom is gray, streaked with yellow or brown, and darker towards the center. It is campanulate, flattening out, sometimes forming a central depression, and other times kind of keeping that pointed umbo there that is very distinctive. And as you can see, it has got a fairly eccentric profile, or it can be circular. And greasy feel if you run your finger across it, and it splits at that margin. So it begins down rolled, and then it starts to split with age as it becomes up rolled. And then these grow up to about 4 inches in diameter. Here's a size reference for you. So it's a good sized mushroom for sure. The gills are white, becoming tan with age. They are sinuate to adnate. They are close together. There are short gills present, as with all the mushrooms we've looked at in this presentation, and there's a white spore print. So the stipe becomes brown with age. It is cylindrical to clavate. It has a central attachment to the cap, and then it's up to about 3 inches high and a ½ inch thick. Now this stipe looks like it's green. It is in fact white, and what you're probably looking at there is just kind of light reflecting from those very green conifer needles. These are mycorrhizal with conifers, as we should ascertain from what I just said. They are terrestrial. They are preferential, again, to sandy soil. These are scattered, but sometimes they'll form small clumps, and they are found summer through fall. These are choice mushrooms. They have a mild taste. They go good in any dish, and therefore advanced mushroom pickers. Here's why. Once again, Tricholoma pardonum on the right-hand side, that can make you very sick. Looks fairly similar. Tricolomatarium, once again, that can kill you. Looks very similar. And Teloma sinuatum. There's that horrible mushroom that can cause, for numerous months, a severe depression in your brain. Not a physical depression, but depression like the mental illness, chemically induced. And here's a Tricholoma spore print for you. It's white. They all look the same. So, this is the Mushroom Wizard. I hope you enjoyed that presentation. This is, again, is for more advanced mushroom pickers that are looking just to expand into some of the more unique tastes out there and some of the lesser picked mushrooms. So, have yourself a good night.